Mrs. Denton? Mrs. Denton, I know you're in there. Mrs. Denton? I'll stay here all night if I have to. Mrs. Denton!
You get away from here! You get away!
I've got to talk to you, Mrs. Denton. Tomorrow's the hearing date for the sentencing, and I've got to talk to you before then.
You get away from here. I'm going to call my husband and have him chase you away. You know what he did last time.
He's gone, Mrs. Denton. I watched him drive away. This is just something for you and me.
We don't have nothing between us, lady. Nothing.
This is a death state, Mrs. Denton. You know what that means, don't you?
I know what you did in court. I heard what you said about my boy, and there was plenty enough for me. Standing up for that dirty, filthy, rotten, old, slimy, old, scuzzy, old, disgusting Franklin Miller. I've seen plenty.
Don't stop, please. Tell me more. I want to hear.
Yaw.
You can call me Carla.
I ain't calling you nothing, lady.
May I call you Maggie?
I'm gonna call the sheriff if you don't get off of my porch.
I don't think so.
You don't think what?
I don't think you like the sheriff any more than I do.
You think you know so much. All that big-time education you got.
Look, Maggie, you know that defending Mr. Miller was my job. It's my job tomorrow at the sentencing. I'm not pretending anything different. I just need 1 minute of your time.
1 minute? He never gave my time at 1 minute at a time. 1 minute of my time he's out pitching stones in the field, and the next minute he's stabbed bloody behind the shed.
We don't have to talk. We can sit. I just need to sit with you before I go back into that courtroom tomorrow. Please, is that too much to ask?
My husband wouldn't let nobody like you in the house.
On the porch, then. I'm begging you, Maggie. I know your husband won't speak to me, but one day in the courtroom, you were sitting in the back, and I turned around, and you looked me straight in the eye, and we started to say something that day. Just you and me. Something silent, something that hasn't been said, and I would just like to finish that off.
I don't recall nothing like that. But if there was such a thing, I was probably just making a prayer for you.
Would you do it again, then? I know you're a real kind-hearted woman, Maggie.
One minute. You got 1 minute.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. I do have one thing to say.
You said we didn't have to talk. I'm not much for talking with you, lady.
Okay, if you could just listen, I'd like to talk.
I'm just gonna pray like I agreed to. You can say whatever you want, but I'm just gonna pray.
Okay, I'll make it real short. Tomorrow's the hearing date for the sentencing. Now, you know this is a death penalty state, and the judge could sentence Mr. Miller to die, or he could send him to prison for the rest of his life.
I'm praying.
And as Mr. Miller's attorney, I'm asking that he be sentenced to prison, Maggie.
I don't have no use for that man. I don't care what they do to him. I never want to hear his name again.
And the judge said he would leave it to the family about the death penalty. He said that if someone from Tommy's family came forward at the sentencing and said that Mr. Miller should...
I said I didn't want to hear his name again.
You've known Franklin Miller a long time.
Too long.
30 years, I think. I remember something from the file. I thought you might have some feeling of sympathy toward him.
Toward him? Toward him? After what he done to my boy, you want me to feel sympathy toward him? Let him rot in a pit with birds pecking at his bones for all I care.
You don't care if he's executed?
No, I don't care. I don't care. After what he did to my Tommy, you want me to care about that? I don't care. All I want is my Tommy back. that's all.
Okay, Maggie, all right. Okay, that's it then, see? I felt I had a duty to ask since that's the condition the judge set. I had to try. I hope you understand.
I don't understand nothing, lady. Nothing.
Carla. I'm Carla.
I'm not. That day in court, what I was thinking I was glad I didn't have that big-time education, so I didn't have to stand up there and defend that dirty, vile, rotten old man that killed my 13-year-old boy.
I see. Sometimes it's not so easy, especially, I know this isn't going to make much sense, but Mr. Miller, I'm not saying anything that happened was right, but now that I've gotten to know him, he's become a friend, in a way. Maybe I just hate to see people die, especially clients. Kind of makes me feel like a failure. Like that big-time education ain't worth a tire track in the mud.
Comes with the territory, I imagine.
I've never had it happen before. A client sentenced to death. Doesn't make much sense.
Ain't no sense of nothing in this world, lady. If there was any sense, my Tommy'd be hollering out back right now.
Yes. And one more thing, Mrs. Dempsey.
I have had enough!
I did want to say, while I was here and all, I want to say, I am very sorry about your Tommy.
You're a liar.
What? This is too much. I am sorry about your son. Good evening, then.
Why are you telling me this now?
What do you mean?
Ain't nobody said that before, not nobody.
Said what?
Sorries. Can't hardly believe it myself. Sure, he weren't no saint or nothing, but nobody said they were sorry. Not the funeral man, not the sheriff, not the judge, not nobody sitting down there in that county. And nobody except one church lady come up here neither to say they're sorry.
Maggie, I am very sorry. And other people were, people just plain act stupid sometimes.
Well, he had some problems, a little bit. So did Daddy once or twice, but we don't belong to no country clubs or nothing. But that don't mean they can treat us like we're trash, like it don't matter, do they?
Listen to me. You didn't deserve to be treated that way.
I just want to die, lady. I ain't told nobody this, not even my husband. I just want to die as soon as have all those cold-hearted people talking, asking questions about my Tommy and having my boy gone like this.
Please. I am sorry. God. I know how it hurts. It's going to hurt. Like a big ball in the middle of your stomach, but it'll get smaller. Over time, things will get better. Slowly. Believe me.
What do you know? This sadness is so thick, I don't know where to put it. I ain't never had nothing like this in my life before.
I had. Well, there was something. Last year, something like it.
You had a child scared bloody?
Oh, no, I didn't have that. It was something different.
Well, then you couldn't know. Something different ain't the same.
It wasn't the same. I just know how the hurt feels. It's not the same. It was my little brother, Jack, actually, last year, and it was different, and he wasn't so little, but he was younger than me, and he got real sick. And they were talking about treatment, and there are things you can do. It's an epidemic, national, and he didn't want to go through with it. He just gave up. He went into the cellar, and you ever see anyone hang themselves? It's a hideous, terrible sight. It's
There.
awful.
I'm sorry.
And he didn't have to go that way, not saying goodbye or anything. And I miss him so much. If he were alive today, right now, I'd be calling him on the phone, crying my eyes out to him. And this has just been very difficult for me with Mr. Miller, with my client and all. And
I'm sorry, Carla. I didn't mean to set you off. I'm sorry.
Oh, this is so stupid. Here I am, supposed to be a big professional, and I'm sitting here blathering to you.
That day when I looked at you in court, I could see that you were sorry for me, and you was the only one. And I wasn't trying to say thank you.
I appreciate that. Well, I'd better be taking my leave before your husband returns. He practically threw the couch at me the last time I was here.
He's not so bad a man. Everybody hurts.
Sure, I understand.
When will they do it to him?
Mr. Miller, I don't know. I'll still argue tomorrow on his behalf. You know, there'll be some people there. His mother. Other people, and then there are the appeals and all.
She must be getting old by now, isn't Mother?
70s, I imagine. She's coming from West Virginia.
Yeah, I know where she's coming from.
Sure. That's your country, too. You probably know more than me. Well, thank you for coming out on the porch.
I bet your brother Jack walks alongside you sometimes.
He does, sometimes.
I bet Jack would be telling you about that part in the Bible where it says an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth.
Jack wasn't much for religion.
Well, I bet Jack would be telling you that that was the stupidest thing he ever heard. I told that to the preacher one time, too. I said, that's just stupid. That don't solve nothing. It just puts blood on both hands. I bet that's what Jack would be telling you.
He might.
And then he might remind you about that part where it says, thou shalt not kill. What about that? Why don't they talk about that in court?
Well, it's a matter of law, you know.
Well, when they wrote those thou shalt nots, there weren't no exceptions for this or that. I bet Jack will be telling you to remind that judge tomorrow.
Sure. I can try.
Well, good.
Right.
I'd like to come and hear what the judge has to say to old Mrs. Miller tomorrow. Now, I don't have no fancy court clothes or nothing, but I'd like to...
Yes, well, it's not new or anything, but...
Oh, no, I couldn't do that. My husband would never approve.
I'll leave it to you then. Jack always liked this jacket. He thought the color was common. Maybe I'll just leave it here on the chair. Okay. Thank you.
I'd like to hear what the judge has to say to old Mrs. Miller tomorrow. I'd like to hear that.